Hello, and welcome to a brand spanking new episode of the Melanin Mayhem podcast, hosted by your favorite country girl, Renee Davis. Ooh, if this is your first time joining me as I tiptoe through the tulips of the criminality of some of the most heinous, I'm talking diabolical and downright audacious crimes, well, baby, come on and sit yourself down and let me tell you what you in for. You see, I bring you these stories because there is a pervasive myth in our community that there are certain types of crimes that Black people just don't commit. And my job in life is to dispel this myth because, honey, Black people have been committing serial shenanigans since Black people been around. And it's my job to bring you these stories real up close and impersonal, honey, so that you can protect your neck, so that this myth does not cause you to fuck around and find out. And if you don't believe me, baby, ask the fine members of my crew. I'm talking about the New Orleans Nation. What's cracking, crime cousins? Ooh, I have missed y'all so much. Oh my God, I feel like so much has happened in less than a week. Because, we just talked on Friday for a Love Kill segment, which was like crazy. But I had to go out of town for work. So this week really feels like it's been a really, really, really long week. I was in Vegas out doing some things, and let me tell you something, Vegas is expensive, even when it's on the company dime. I was so ready to get back here so I could bring you this week's story because, oh my Lord, Jesus, I found a good one for us today. But before we get into that little piece of business, I do have a church announcement that I need to get out there for you guys, and that is, don't forget to get your tickets to Season's Slayings. Well, Nay, what is Season's Slayings? Oh, honey, that's the virtual live show that the BTCC, me and my crew over at the Black True Crime Collective, yeah, we putting on a virtual show for y'all next month because, everybody needs a little holiday ho, 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 right? And ours is going to be fabulous because you don't even have to get up and get out to come see it because, baby, this is a virtual show, which means you can attend it wherever you feel like. If you're in bed, go ahead and log in. You in the car? Go ahead and log in. You working on your shift? Baby, go ahead and log in wherever you are. Virtual, baby, you can join us and we're going to kiki. You don't have to worry about putting on your finest attire. As a matter of fact, that's the opposite of what we want. Because this is a Christmas show, we are going to do contests for the ugly Christmas sweater, the most inventive Christmas sweater. We're going to play reindeer games and kiki and just have us a good old time. And again, this is a virtual event. So go on ahead and head over to eventbrite.com and get your tickets today to Season's Slayings. Now, that's all I have for church announcements. We got business to attend to, so let's go on ahead and do what we came here to do. Now, oh baby, today I got vintage tea to spill. We're going to head back to 1911 in Lafayette, Louisiana, where a teenage Black girl is accused of one of the most gruesome killing sprees in Southern history. They called her the Axe Woman of Lafayette. But the question really is, was she a killer or was she a creation? If we believe a tenth of what they had to say about her, oh baby, she was a bad motherfucker and we ain't gonna shut our mouths. We gonna tell it all. Can we believe what we read? Can we believe the stories that were left behind? Was this ancestral fake news? I'm kind of on the fence about this one, New Orleans Nation. I ain't gonna even hold you. But my job is to report the news. And this week, I am bringing to the front of the congregation one of the serial killers that ever serialed out in this motherfucker. So this week's Melanin Mayhem maker, her name is Miss Clementine Barnabet, a.k.a. the Axe Woman of Lafayette. New Orleans Nation, let's go on ahead and do what we came here to do. Now, I gotta tell you, this story is crazy. So all I can tell you is just hang on because it's about to be a bumpy ride, okay? So our mayhem maker, Miss Clementine, she was born somewhere between 1892 and 1894. Back in the day, this point in time, having records for our people, just knowing that we actually have some stuff on paper is already a feat in and of itself. So knowing what her exact date of birth is, couldn't find that out. But what we do know is that she was born to Raymond Barnabet and Nina Porter. Well, Raymond was a sharecropper and a laborer. And what Nina did, I don't know. But it looks like Clementine was born in St. Martin Parish, Louisiana, although some sources list her as being born in Lafayette. So somewhere we do know that she was born in Louisiana, whether it was St. Martin or Lafayette, who knows? But Louisiana is her birthplace. We also know that she had at least one brother. His name was Zephyrin Barnabet. Now, I gotta tell you, there's a little bit of colorism at play here because in Louisiana, there was a whole race of people that were called Creole, right? And at this time, early 1900s, Creole people didn't consider themselves black, because they felt like they had Indian or white in their bloodline, right? But of course, the one drop rule being a whole ass thing, whenever the shit hit the fan, society labeled these Creole don't want to be black people as Negroes, okay? And so that's what we're going with today. Clementine had black folks in her family. She is a whole ass Negro. Now, this family, they were poor and they bounced around wherever they could scratch out a living, right? Because Daddy Barnabet, he was a professional lush. So when he wasn't working the fields, he was hitting that bottle pretty damn hard. And apparently, he was a mean drunk because in 1911, it is said that Nina, the common law wife, girlfriend, whatever you want to call it, baby mama, she called the cops on Raymond for domestic violence. And then she throwed the deuces to their asses because you know what? You're not finna keep putting your hands on me, baby. She dipped off to less violent situations, if you will. Now, the children, Clementine and Zephyrin, they stayed with their daddy and they made it do what it do, right? I don't think Mama Nina was looking for any stragglers to ride with her. She was out. She was done doing what she was gonna do with this little here family, right? So I don't know what, if anything, went on in their lives prior to 1911, but that particular year, 1911, baby, that is when the Barnabet name stayed on people's tongues because, woo, the foolishness and fuckery of it all. So we got to start at the beginning of the shenanigery, right? And it all started with Clementine's daddy, Raymond Barnabet. You see, February 24th, 1911, the Andrus family is murdered. Well, goddamn, Nay. Let's just jump right into it, huh? Yeah, I told y'all to hold on. It was gonna be a bumpy ride. Cause, baby, crime cousins. Whew, ain't no way for me to sugarcoat this shit. This ain't no fairy tale today, y'all. 4 people of the Andrus family, I'm talking a mother, the father, that was Alexander and Mimi Andrus, and their 2 kids, Joshim and Agnes, they were found hacked to death in their beds. And yes, I said hacked. You heard me correctly. Hacked, as in the killer used the don't play with me end of the axe and disconnected this entire family. Ooh, shit, that's one way to goddamn get this thing started, huh? Let me tell you something. This also wasn't no robbery. No robbery. Everything that the Andrews family owned was still in their home, including whatever little coins that they had, any little valuables, all that shit was still in the house. Did nobody come in there to rob them. They just came in and killed them. There were also no witnesses, just a very violent murder scene. Well, I think it goes without saying, the town was shooketh. Who the fuck takes an axe upside a whole family's head, right? Well, during the course of the investigation, Raymond Barnabet's name kept coming up. Somebody said that he had something to do with the murderations. So, listening to the street committee, the police arrested Raymond. Now, I'm going to tell you, even in 1911, hearsay was a thing. I mean, somebody can say somebody had something to do with something, but the police needs evidence to make that shit stick, right? And evidence is what the Lafayette police did not have. So, within about a week, they had to cut Raymond loose because, no evidence. But I'm going to tell you, just because they let him go, don't mean they let it go. Oh no, they were still doing their due diligence to find the killer. Well, just 5 months later, in July, the Lafayette police rearrested Raymond, and this time they charged him with the Andrus family slaughter. Ooh, all right, Nate. So what they came up with to make the charges stick this time? Well, witnesses came forward to say that they know definitively that Raymond did that shit that night, and he confessed to them. Well, damn, Nay, who was the witness? Y'all ain't gonna believe this shit. His own kids, Clementine and her brother Zephyrin. Y'all didn't see that one coming, did you? You sure they black, Nay? You know, the melanators don't usually drop a dime on their people. You know, I'm just saying. Well, you know, we come in all shapes, sizes, and flavors, and sometimes we do strange things that go against our character natures. And I know it seems crazy, but Clem and Zep, oh, they was on some fuck that nigga type of time. Now, Raymond, he sat in jail for like 3 months before his case went to trial in October of 1911. Now, Clementine and Zephyrin, they took the stand and said that their daddy was the killer. They said that he came home that night and he compelled them to help him conceal the evidence. In other words, they were made to help him cover it up. Now, Clementine, oh, she was crunk. Baby, she got up on the stand, and according to the street committee, she testified that her daddy came home that night of the Andrus's murder. His blue shirt that he was wearing was covered in blood and brains. She said that her daddy was bragging that he killed the whole family that night, and then he told Clementine, wash my shit up and get this shit off my shit. And Clementine did it. I mean, that was her daddy. He told her what to do, so she did that shit. Well, okay, that's Clementine's story on the stand. Well, Zephyrin, he got on the stand. He didn't have quite a robust testimony like his sister Clementine, but he did confirm that, yeah, my daddy had blood on his clothes that night, and my daddy did say that he had killed that whole family. Well, them two wasn't the only one to get on the stand to testify. They did find his old lady. You know, they mama, they drug her ass back onto the scene, and she said, you know what, that night I ain't seen no blood and I ain't heard Raymond say nothing about killing nobody, so I don't know what the fuck they talking about. But the prosecution did get her to admit that old Ray did like to put his hands on a motherfucker, and he had a hair trigger when it came to his anger spilling over. He was body about it, you know what I'm saying? Before Master P was body about it, Raymond was body about it. They even called the neighbor, their next door neighbor, to the stand, and the neighbor said the same thing. I didn't see Raymond with no blood on his clothes that night. I ain't heard Raymond talking no shit about killing nobody, so I don't know where this came from. So of the 4 witnesses, we got 2, the son and the daughter, saying that daddy did it, and then we got the old lady and the neighbor saying, I don't know what they talking about. Raymond didn't even get on the stand, period, in his own defense. Mostly because he was drunk as a skunk the entire time he was on trial. And it's just not a good look to let a drunk man speak freely. You know what I'm saying? Well, I can tell you this. The jury believed the words of his kids, and they convicted Raymond Barnabet for the murders on October 19th, 1911. His sentence? Death by hanging. Oh, shit. Honey, the papers, they ate that shit up. The headline screamed, Negro Demon Convicted. Like, damn. Let me tell you something. The press, the newspapers back in the day, baby, they were some shady motherfuckers. Like, I do enjoy this part of the research when I have to go look at a case from way back when, because the newspapers, those articles are full of all kind of shade and motive, and people just spoke freely, you know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna have to put a pin in Daddy Barnabet for a second, okay? Just hold on. I'm gonna circle back around to Daddy Barnabet in a minute, because I got more pressing news to tell y'all about. Now check this shit out. 1 month later, after Daddy Barnabet has been convicted of hacking to death the Andrus family, another black family would be sent on to glory by way of an axe. Baby, November 26, 1911, we still in Lafayette, right? This time, according to the newspaper, one of the best Negro families in the city of Lafayette was the victim. What makes them the best Negro family? Like, did they have money? That social standing? Like, again, the shade of it all. This time, it's 6 bodies, y'all. This family was found by their oldest daughter, a 9-year-old who had spent the night at a cousin's house. So when she came home, she found that her whole family had been sent to the room. I'm talking about the daddy. His name was Norbert Randall, his wife, Azima Randall, and 3 of their kids, as well as their nephew. These babies were aged 2.5, 3, 5, and 7, all dead. Baby, the newspaper, the Crowley Post, they described it as all 6 had their brains knocked out with an axe. Ooh, child, descriptive much? Baby, all of this went down in a single night as they slept in their beds. Same kind of scene as the Andrus murder. Same kind of weapon as the Andrus murder. Same kind of suspect as the Andrus murder. But here's the one big difference in this case versus the Andrus murder. Norbert Randall was not only had his head hacked open with an axe, he was also shot in the head. Ooh, shit. Oh, and by the way, by now, Raymond Barnabet's lawyers have filed an appeal to get their client's case reheard because, hey, Raymond was drunk and we don't really feel like he was the one who did it because guess what? Murders are still happening. So that plus the fact that these murders are continuing allows the case against him to fall apart and Ray Ray walks out free as a bird. That really happened. But by this time, the Barnabet name, it's tainted. Don't nobody want to hear that shit. You hear Barnabet, you think murder. And so when the Randall family got that shit taken to their heads, it did not take police long to circle back to a Barnabet. Well, the police, they doing their due diligence, they searching the neighborhood, but they still want to know where them damn Barnabets at. Because they lived around the corner from the Randalls. So the investigators, they start combing through the neighborhood looking for clues. The sheriff and the police department, they went right to the Barnabet house, and baby, when they got there, why did they find blood on a fence in the backyard? So they went inside, and the only person home was Clementine. So they started asking her some questions. They started looking around the house, and in Clementine's room, guess what they find? Baby, they found some clothes, her clothes, that had blood and brains on them. Ooh, baby, Clementine, what are you doing, girl? Well, Clementine said, I don't know what you're talking about. Them ain't my clothes. And the sheriff was like, sure they're not. They're just in your closet. They're just in your room where you sleep, where you say nobody but you is in. So, and not to mention, this blood is still fresh. This shit here's still a little juicy. So they went right on ahead and arrested Clementine for the sextuple murderation. Baby, Clementine at this time is only 20 years old. Okay, so right about now, the cops is thinking back to that first murder, the Andrus family, and how Clementine and her brother was the star witness against Daddy Barnabet. And remember, when Raymond Barnabet got locked up when the family got murdered, he kept telling them, I didn't do this. It wasn't me. But the MO is pretty much the same as the crime that they was trying to convict him of. But again, all along, Raymond been saying he wasn't the one that did it. Was that his way of dropping a dime on his daughter Nim without saying it? But by this time and this place in life, being innocent didn't really matter that much if you were poor and black. And here's the thing, if you were poor and black and also a woman who had the audaciousness to be laughing when we talking about some axe murderations, oh baby, that's your ass. So they've got Clementine. They got her. She's arrested. But that particular night, Clementine was hanging out with two of her homies, dude named Edwin Charles and a dude named Gregory Porter. Well, they went and snatched their asses up too because apparently they thought that, maybe Clementine had some help. And since she was hanging out with these dudes that night, they must have been the ones who helped her. So now Clementine is in jail as well as Edwin and Gregory Porter. Now, Clementine is in jail in Lafayette, but she is not confessing to the crimes. Yeah, they got these clothes with this blood and this brain matter on it, but Clementine is still saying, you know what? It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So the sheriff of Lafayette decides that it's time to send Clementine to New Orleans to undergo what is known as a third-degree examination. Now, New Orleans Nation, it's time for a little history lesson. You see, back in the 1900s, especially in the South, the term third-degree examination, this was described as a tactic used by the popo to get a motherfucker to talk. It was coercive and it was violent. It was an interrogation intended to force a confession out of a suspect. In other words, they was torturing a suspect until they broke. Well, this is well before Miranda rights was a thing, and the interrogations, they kind of broke down like this. You had a first degree interrogation, and that was just your basic asking questions, right? And then there was the second degree interrogation. It was a little bit more intense, more questions, a lot of threats, isolation, But oh, baby, that goddamn third-degree interrogation. This, we talking about physical force, torture, deprivation, psychological abuse, any and everything that needed to be done to get a confession. I'm talking about stuff like beating a motherfucker, sleep depriving them, starving them or restricting them from food and water, being held in a dark, isolated cell, threatening to lynch a motherfucker, you know what I'm saying? And if that don't get them, then they start threatening their family members, or they made them stand up for hours, or then if the standing up didn't work, they would make them get naked and put them in an uncomfortable position like kneeling on top of rice and shit. Like I said, straight up torture. Now, these tactics, it was commonplace, especially when the suspect was black or poor, or if they were tied to a sensational crime, right? And I think murdering black families in their beds with an axe, that falls squarely under the heading of a sensational crime. Now, the newspapers at the time, like I said, the newspapers they was petty as fuck. And so they would brag about how the third-degree methods were clever uses of police work. This was not abuse in the early 1900s. So when they arrested Clementine, she was team, I didn't do that shit. But baby, after they got her ass in New Orleans and sent her through third-degree tactics, then she was team, I did all that shit. Now, at this point, it's kind of looking like Clementine is a stone-cold murderer, huh? I mean, she's young, so young to be so diabolical. But did she do it? Or was it the third-degree interrogation that made her just start copping to any kind of thing? But what I want to know is, Clementine is throwed off. The whole family is throwed off. But how did they get here, right? And I found out that it might be that Clementine was under the influence of a force that was way more powerful than the will of a headstrong teenager. I'm talking organized religion, a perverted religion. You see, this thing is bigger than just one messed up young adult. Oh, no. This messed up young adult that I'm talking about, Miss Clementine, oh, baby, she was a member of the Church of Sacrifice. And just like the name states, the members, yes, honey, they was out here disconnecting people in the name of the Lord. Black Jesus is not pleased with this bullshit, y'all. But religion can be perverted and twisted and have people doing all kinds of shit if they're susceptible, right? I don't care if you call it religion. I don't care if you call it a cult, whatever you want to call it. The followers, when they are fanatical, they will do some cremacious shenanigans, right? It's been that way since the beginning of time. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the Church of Sacrifice. You see, I went down a rabbit hole, and in the early 1900s, this little church had the people shooketh, and I ain't just talking about in Louisiana. Baby, the fear, this shit was spread far and wide. I mean, I found this article. This was in a Texas newspaper called the State Journal, and it said, quote, "The Church of Sacrifice, which has its origins in the colored race in Louisiana a few months ago, is a mysterious religious order about which little is definitively known. Whether each member of the church must kill his quota of colored people, or whether the crimes are committed on behalf of the religious order as a whole is not publicly known. Up until this time, there has been at least 41 victims at the hands of these religious fanatics. Seemingly every family of 5 or more persons under the ban must be wiped out. The object of the murder is not robbery, and the weapon used in every case was always an axe." End quote. Ooh, child. So after Clementine was arrested, it was like a chain of events kept happening. Black families with multiple children, they started getting letters saying that they were going to be next to be disconnected and that the church was coming for them. Like I said, it was inciting fear because people were dying. For real. So the Church of Sacrifice was out here disconnecting whole families and getting away with it. The leader of the church was a man named King Harrison. He was the man that set up the church and its different sects all along the Southern Pacific Railroad route, right? They arrested him on January 20th, 1912. We're talking like 2 months after Clementine. But King Harrison, he denied teaching anybody in his flock anything that would incite violence or riot or anything like that. He said he was a peaceful man. He was teaching the word of God. So you got to think at this point in 1912, the Barnabets are locked up because they when it snatched up Zephyrin and they snatched up Daddy, because they don't know who did what. The head of the church is locked up, but guess what? Bodies are still coming up dead with axes going through their heads. So did Clementine do it? Or was she just one of the many axe murderers out here getting their heck on? Now, Clementine supposedly admitted to killing 17 people across Louisiana and Texas. She said she killed families in Crowley, in Rayne, Lake Charles, and even in Beaumont. On April 1st, 1912, she confessed to killing the 4 members of the Randall family, 4 members of the Andrews family, who her daddy had been convicted of. Then she killed a family of 5 in Rayne, and then she also killed a family of 4 in Crowley. This is Clementine talking of her own free will at this point. She said that her gang consisted of 2 other women and 2 men, and that they would draw straws, and whoever got the short straw, that's who would take the axe to the peoples. And the rest of the gang would just watch while somebody disconnected a whole ass family. She said that it was easy after the first 2, just to get rid of them all. Like, Clementine is talking not only to the police, at this point she's doing interviews with reporters, and they are printing everything that she says. She told them that she was a part of the Church of Sacrifice, and the preachers and the hoodoo doctors taught the followers how to kill whole families for salvation. She said that there was a reverend named Reverend Thibodeau, and Reverend Thibodeau would give her a hoodoo that would keep her and her family safe from being found out. She says that before she went out and did any hacking, she always went by Reverend Thibodeau's and got her route right. At this point, the story is just too wild to ignore. And the press, oh baby, they ate that shit with both hands. Because Clementine, like I said, is out here giving interviews and telling them shit like how there are 13 more victims that's about to get their shit fucked up. Like, ma'am, what is you doing? But the crazy shit is, everybody that the cops have arrested, I'm talking Edwin Charles and Gregory Porter, you remember those were the guys who was with Clementine that night when she supposedly did the murder. King Harris, the leader of the church, Reverend Thibodeau, who's making the hoodoo amulets to keep everybody safe, they let all of them go, but not Clementine. They kept her. She is the one that they're going to pin all this shit on. And, you know, she's the one that confessed. Everybody else is saying, not me. I didn't have anything to do with it. And so here's where it gets messier, if that's even a thing. Like, this same week that Clementine confessed after her 3rd-degree interrogation, the sheriff and the DA, they admitted to the press that they couldn't prove half of the shit that she confessed to. Like, they are quoted in a newspaper as saying, the officers know that some of her confession is true, but a lot of this is fiction. But that line of thinking got lost in the sauce. Didn't nobody want to hear that shit? There was a confession, and a little negress gal, she was the killer who killed all them families. And so the press went off to the races. Ooh, honey, the headlines, they were so sensational. It went from negress confesses to the Voodoo Murderess to the high priestess of sacrifice. But you know, the attention span of the American people ain't never been too long, right? And it was starting to wane a little bit because we talking about a Negro killing other Negroes. So to keep the reader's attention, the press started calling her all kind of bullshit, like the lowest type of Negro. Like, what the fuck is that? But you know, the newspapers back then, they didn't just report the crime. It was like they were theater in print. So the $1 million question is, did they take a scared, isolated teenager who had just been tortured and turned her into a myth, a legend? Because, you know, legends, that sells better than the truth. Or did they put a sociopath on blast for everybody to see? I mean, I don't know. We're talking 1911, 12, 13. This was big shit. And the melanated peoples, they were shooketh. And you know, we are a superstitious people. And even though the deaths did not stop with Clementine being arrested, they still wanted somebody to pay. And Clementine was the one sitting in the seat. So, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't feel like this is real journalism. It feels like this is a character development for a script. And Clementine is giving them main character energy. And since they ain't got nobody else stepping up to the plate claiming all this shit, Clementine is the one that they're going to hold responsible for all of this shit, all of this church of sacrifice tomfoolery, even though since she's been arrested and locked up, at least 12 more people have been hacked to death by Axe. But we ain't worried about that, right? We moving on, pressing forward. So it's April 1912. Clementine's trial began. She is only charged with one murder. Even though she has confessed to like 17 to 20 murderations, they have only charged her with one murder. And no mention of this so-called Church of the Sacrifice was ever used in court. Now, Clementine was not an easy defendant by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, she made shit way harder than it had to be. She had some lawyers who were really trying to defend her, right? They tried to plead her out as not guilty by reason of insanity. But then Clementine got on the stand and was like, I am the woman of the sacrifice sect. I killed them all, the men, the women, and the babies. And I hugged their dead bodies to my heart. I clutched them close. But I ain't guilty of murder. What? Girl, if you don't shut the fuck up, it's free. Just be quiet, Clementine, because you are making a bad situation worse. But Clementine wasn't through making it worse. Oh, there was much more worse that she can do to her case. Check this out. Her attorneys, they trying to do what they need to do. They doing right by their client. But again, Clementine making it hard. They tried to get the confession thrown out, and they were successful. They were going to throw the confession out because, again, the confession came after Clementine was tortured. But guess what? Clementine was like, no, put my confession in the trial record. Girl, what? You can't be serious. But y'all, she was. Clementine Barnabet wanted that confession to be a part of the trial record. And her reasoning was, she felt that if she was going to be executed, then an angel in a chariot of fire was going to come swoop down and save her life. Bitch, if you don't sit your ass down somewhere... But it's too late. She about to be sat down for real, though, because the court found that as guilty as charged. And on October 25th, 1912, they sentenced Clementine Barnabet to life in prison at the Louisiana State Penitentiary. Okay, so normally at this point, this is where I would say something to the effect of, and that was the story of Clementine Barnabet. But that ain't the end of the story, y'all. We about to really get off into some bullshit at this point because some real foolishness and fuckery happened after Clementine went to prison. So, Clem is at Angola and everything seems to be, kind of quiet. She's basically been forgotten by the media. Once she was sentenced and taken away, they was moving on to the next crime, okay? But, Clementine still got a little piece of fight in her. They say that she escaped from the prison on July 31st, 1913. Now, she was only out of pocket for like a couple of hours, but the punishment they're about to give her for escape, it don't fit the crime. So, understand this. The prison, there's a doctor on staff, right? His name is Dr. Sterling. Well, Dr. Sterling also has an assistant doctor, if you will, and this man is named Wyatt Ingram. Now, Wyatt is a prisoner. He got sent up the river for misappropriating funds at the bank that he worked at. Now, when he went to prison, he decided that he was going to further his education and he was going to go from a banker to a doctor. So he started reading up on medical books. And then he proclaimed himself a goddamn doctor. And they was like, okay, bet, white man, you a doctor. What could possibly go wrong? Let me tell you what the fuck went wrong. When Clementine broke out, these good doctors decided that she needed medical assistance getting back on the straight and narrow. They decided that Clementine was still perverted in the head and she needed an operation to take the demon seed out of her. So the doctor, the prison doctor, Dr. Sterling, and the doctor who read a couple of books, they went to the warden and asked for permission to perform an operation on Clementine Barnabet's head. They were going to make some adjustments. And do y'all know, this motherfucking warden, Colonel Harrison Parker, he was like, sure. Why the fuck not? Are you serious? Of course I'm serious. And the very next day after she escaped, on August 1st, 1913, them bullshit ass doctors, they performed an operation on Clementine. They did brain surgery on this woman. And when they finished, they said, okay, the the surgery was a success. It removed her desire to kill. It took away any perversions that she had in her. Clementine Barnabet has been cured. Now, ain't that about a bit? And then, here come the prison. Oh, the warden, he's giving interviews. He talking about how Clementine is one of the mildest prisoners in the penitentiary now. Baby, on August 8th, 1913, we talking 7 days after this brain surgery, the warden told the newspaper, "We have had this woman under observation ever since the surgery. She has lost all traces of her old desire to kill, and she sings cheerfully as she works in the fields with the other Negroes. The cure is as complete as it is wonderful." That's a direct quote. If you don't get the fuck up out of here, first and foremost, this woman had brain surgery, and you mean to tell me, well, of course there was no recuperation time. They probably put her ass right back to work as soon as they got her up off the operation table. The fact that she out here in the fields singing? Are you fucking kidding me? I wish I was. Oh my Lord, I wish I was. But I can't make this shit up, y'all. I mean, we know that in the course of our history that there were doctors that were performing all kinds of unnecessary medical procedures on black people. But when you run up on one, I guess in real life, and see it in print in black and white for real, that shit is mind-blowing. And you would think that, okay, we know Clementine got a life sentence, right? So what else they gonna do to her while she up in this prison? Well, they're not gonna do nothing else to her because now at this point, after this brain surgery, they said that she's cured. So Clementine still got a life sentence because she the killing killer that killed 17 or 25 people, depending on which confession you believe, right? She's a threat to society, right? She never gonna see the light of day again, right? Not as a free woman. Wrong. Baby, tell me why they let Clementine Barnabet walk free somewhere around August 28th, 1923. This is 11 years after she was sentenced to a life sentence. 10 years after they performed this miracle surgery on her brain. And when they let her out, Clementine just vanished like a fart in the wind, never to be heard from again. And I can't say that I blame her. I mean, at this point, bitch, you need to lay low. I'm talking about all the way low because they already done went inside your head. Who knows what they tinkered with and what ain't right now. But yeah, that's the last we heard of Clementine Barnabet. And that, New Orleans Nation, was the story of a Negro woman in 1911 convicted for murdering families with an axe, got a brain surgery, and was able to walk away. Woo, child. I just can't. This story was a lot. Like, when I read it, it was just so fascinating because the articles, oh my God, the articles of it all, they were sensational. I mean, they really built up this myth that made Clementine seem to be just larger than life. And let's talk about this myth, how it came to be, because understand, real people died real horrible deaths. January 24th, 1911, William Byers and his wife and their child, they were killed in Crawley, Louisiana. February 24th, 1911, we know about the Andrews family, who originally we thought Clementine's daddy, Raymond, did, but later Clementine confessed to. Then March 21st, 1911, Alfred Castaway, his wife, Elizabeth Castaway, who, in this story, Elizabeth is the only member of the Saltine Nation to catch this axe. I guess this was one of those, interracial type of situations. But Alfred and Elizabeth Castaway, they had 3 children. All this family of 5, all killed in San Antonio, Texas, with an axe in their bed. November 27th, 1911, that's when Norbert Randall and his family, this is when the law arrested Clementine for their murder. But even after she's arrested and in jail, January 19th, 1912, Marie Warner and her 3 children are found axed to death in their house in Crowley, Louisiana. January 20th, the very next day, Felix Broussard, his wife Matilda, and their 3 children found hacked to death in their beds in their Lake Charles, Louisiana home. And then on February 18th, 1912, Hattie Dove and her 3 children, they are found hacked to death in their home in Beaumont, Texas. Just this listing that I've given you, that's 31 Black people, from babies to full-grown adults, and 1 member of the Saltine Nation killed in their beds with an axe. And nobody was really held responsible for their killings. They just let it all lay at Clementine's feet. Now, besides the Andrews family and the Randall family, who we know that it really does look like Clementine might have disconnected. I mean, she did confess. The blood was there. I mean, the timeline kind of matches up. But who killed the other ones? Clementine was locked up. She didn't do it. If it was the Church of Sacrifice, how come nobody was held responsible? You had the leader, you had a couple of preachers. I just don't understand how a 20-year-old woman could be made the scapegoat for all of these murderations in multiple places. Like, she couldn't have been in multiple places at one time. This had to be a conspiracy. So why are we only focused on Clementine? I know why. Because in the early 1900s, America was obsessed with 2 things: sex and superstition. The idea of a Black woman killing, literally, oh, that shit was like irresistible, right? So to make the myth of Clementine the Axe Murderess, they had to give her a motive that made sense to them. Voodoo, hoodoo. Oh yes, baby, that's a reason right there. They gave her some accomplices. They said it was a cult, and the members of the Church of Sacrifice, they helped her do it, but we don't know who those people are. And then they gave Clementine power. They sprinkled a little black magic in there for good measure. And then they stripped away the one thing that she truly had, which was her humanity, right? I mean, the papers, they described her like they were writing about an animal. They talked about her thick lips and her bulging eyes and how she was morally depraved. Every stereotype that they could throw at Clementine, they did. Because in order to justify this horror, they had to make her inhuman. And it worked. She became an urban legend of the time before she even made it to the courthouse. She wasn't just a killer. She was unnatural. A woman who killed. A Black woman who killed. They sexualized her evil and demoralized her, describing her as masculine and immoral, that she was a pervert. Because in their minds, a woman that was capable of any kind of violence had to be everything that society feared from Black people. At her trial, this story took on a life of its own. The newspapers, they printed and reprinted it over and over again. Fact and fiction intertwined together. In the pulpits, the preachers, they used her as a warning for what happens when you backslide and work in sin. Calling her a voodoo queen of murder, a high priestess of sacrifice, all of these things. But when you strip away the superstition and the tall tales, all you're left with is this. Clementine Barnabet was a young, poor Black woman accused in 2 murders who was possibly manipulated by law enforcement to get her to confess. And once she confessed, Clementine as a person was erased. And all we were left with was Clementine, the myth. Everything else, the cult, the rituals, the black magic, all of this was spoken of by people who didn't want to face just how ordinary, how human evil can be. Because it don't take all that. You don't need black magic to kill. Clementine Barnabet might have been under the influence of a religious cult. True enough. It didn't make her supernatural. It didn't make her any of those things. It just made her someone who was out here doing serial shenanigans. And what do I say? We've been doing this shit since we got here. This is the early 1900s. A woman, a Black woman out here doing serial killings, admitting to it. I don't know, but I can't wait to hear what y'all got to say about this. Y'all hit me up on the social media pages. You know how to reach me. I am Melanin Mayhem Podcast everywhere except on X. Over there, I'm special. I'm Melanin Mayhem PC. My email is always open for your suggestions, your thoughts, your kikis, your, oh my lords, anything that you want to tell me, you can reach out at melaninmayhempodcast@gmail.com. If you have not heard, there is a fabulous discussion group on Facebook. It is called the Melanin Mayhem Podcast Discussion Group. Real easy to remember. Go over there, honey. We be kikiing. It's private. You ain't got to worry about sister so-and-so seeing how you get down when we talking about these crimes, because, baby, we goes in. If you would like to be down, go on over there and answer a couple of questions, and I promise I will let you in. Now, this week's New Orleans Nation shout out goes to Moody Rudy L, who left a review on Apple. It was entitled Love. I really enjoy this show. You do a great job telling stories in your own way. Even if I've heard the story before, I still listen. Well, Moody Rudy L, I appreciate it, honey, because I told you, don't nobody tell the story the way I tell it, honey. So I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with the country girl, giving me a stream. Ooh, and speaking of streams, y'all are showing out on Spotify. What they say? Closed mouths don't get fed. Baby, y'all got me so close. Y'all are running those Spotify numbers up, and all I can say is thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, how you doing it, because I am appreciative of it all, baby. We are so close. I mean, we are right there. So go on ahead and tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend and tell your mama and them to get on Spotify and listen to your favorite country girl as she come with this foolishness every Wednesday for your listening pleasure. Now, y'all know what it is. I have got to get in the lab and cut this thing up. But before I go, don't forget to get over to Eventbrite and get your tickets for the season Slaying virtual event. I can't wait to see you guys there. Now, I'm up out of here, but before I go, you know I have to close the doors of the church. So I need y'all to go on ahead and stay safe. And please, please, please stay vigilant. And above all else, remember this. If you stay ready, ooh, honey, you ain't got to get ready. It's one love, New Orleans Nation, and your favorite country girl is out of here.
Ooh-wee, Nana, you did that.